Hello, everybody. This is Richard RJ Eskow for the 0 Hour with the segment we call Reading the News. Now, normally in this segment, we read the headlines for the past week and discuss the top stories, but this week we're going to do things a little differently. Since this is our final program of the year, we are going to address the top stories of the year, but we're going to do that a little differently. Courtesy of Project Censored, which can be found at projectcensored.org, we are going to give you the top 25 censored or suppressed news stories of the year as reported out by Project Censored, which is a group which seeks to promote stories that are not being covered by the mainstream media. So we will not be able to get to all of them, but we will give you a sense of some of the stories you probably didn't hear about this year, unless perhaps you heard about them on this show, but even we were not able to get to most of them. So, okay, let's start with some of the stories that were censored or suppressed this year. One of them, chaptered out, they call it. The U.S. military has been seeking to balance its budget on the back of disabled veterans. As Project Censored explains, the U.S. military has been forcing wounded and disabled veterans out of the service to avoid paying benefits and to make room for new able-bodied recruits. This, in fact, is a process which is lowering their expenses, but victimizing America's servicemen and women in the process. Now, a number of U.S. prison inmates serving life sentences has hit a new record. A report released by the Sentencing Project, a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit criminal justice advocacy group, revealed that the number of prisoners serving life sentences in U.S. state and federal prisons reached a new record of nearly 160,000 people in 2012. But the report, which was released in the last year, said that 49,000 are serving life without possibility of parole, an increase of 22.2%. So we are warehousing more and more of our own citizens without a chance for rehabilitation or a future. We have also learned through media analysis that the corporate news media consistently understates rape and sexual violence. Media analyses have shown that journalists refrain in many cases from using the word rape to describe incidents of sexual assault. Instead, news outlets downplay the humiliation and cruelty, says Project Censored, entailed in those acts by referring to them as sex crimes, is one phrase they use, appropriate sexual act or sex, even though such acts which meet those descriptions, are legally recognized as rape. Now, this reluctance to call rape is in fact contributing to a climate where we don't understand the pervasive violence facing so many women in our society. Now, the number one story that Project Censored notes for the year is that ocean acidification is increasing at an unprecedented rate. As Project Censored says, it's well known that burning fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide into the air, but less understood is that a quarter of this carbon dioxide, about 20 trillion pounds every year, is absorbed by oceans. This was reported in the Seattle Times as well as elsewhere, and yet this story, which threatens and imperils not only seafaring life and our sources of food supply, major sources of food supply, but our very existence on the planet, is getting little to no coverage in the media. Now, we also learned, in terms of censored stories, that the top 10 recipients of United States foreign aid all practice torture. In one form or another, the top 10 nations slated to receive U.S. foreign assistance in fiscal year 2014 all practice torture and are all responsible for major human rights abuses. This was reported by Daniel Wickham, who based this conclusion on a combination of projected foreign assistance figures from a January 2013 report by the Congressional Research Service and by torture findings. Now, WikiLeaks revealed that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is the big upcoming trade deal President Obama and the Republicans are aggressively pushing, has been ignored by corporate media, even though its impact on the United States economy and our jobs and our livelihood could be as great as NAFTA or greater, and even though it overrules some of our own sovereign ability to handle disputes with manufacturers and corporations in our own courts. Now, on November 13th of 2013, the end of the year, WikiLeaks published a section of this deal, which has been kept secret from even Congress and the American people. WikiLeaks published a section of it, but nobody seems to be covering it, even though it has an enormous influence on our economic destiny. Now, corporate internet providers are threatening net neutrality as Censored 2015 went to press. Reports Project Censored, the FCC had just publicly revealed its new rules for internet traffic. We've been following that story, so we won't go more deeply into that. The final story, uncensored story or uncovered story of the year, we will close out with is that bankers are back on Wall Street despite major crimes. A story spanning a decade has come to an unfortunate yet surprising end. 3 former General Electric bankers, Dominic Carollo, Stephen Goldberg, and Peter Grimm, have been convicted for rigging auctions of municipal bonds, and they're back on Wall Street. That's it for our top censored stories of the year. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.